Hi everyone, and welcome back to another tabletop gaming discussion with Elaine and Jeremy.
Hello.
Today, we're going to be talking about our top 10 favorite tabletop games, the ones we think are the best of the tabletop cooperative line. I don't know if I said that before, so I felt like I had to say it again and sound a little bit like a robot, because that's what you do in these videos.
Yeah.
You know, that.
Are you gonna kick us off with number 10?
You want me to kick us off?
Yeah.
Ooh, so kind of you, sir.
Yeah, I'll let you do it.
So I can't say number one, I think, if I do the math good.
I don't know if it works
Well,
out.
we'll find out. Let's go. Number 10 on our list is Betrayal at House on the Hill. Woo! Okay, so for me, this game is on the bottom of the list for a few reasons, okay? First, there is an expansion, but the expansion has some really, really, really bad scenarios on it. Like, I feel like worse than the base game scenarios, which are also very hit or miss.
Yeah.
A. B, there's always that bugger that betrays you, so that's kind of annoying, because you just want to be friends, you know? And it's always you. You know?
Yeah,
or you're the one who triggers it, because you're the a-hole.
I do end up being the traitor a lot. I think the bad part of this traitor mechanic in comparison to others is just that it can be so random, because if like the traitor isn't triggered until after you've uncovered most of the board, you're gonna have probably an easy time beating the traitor. And if it's uncovered really early, or it triggers really early, then it's really hard for the players to go up against the person who's the betrayer.
Yeah, the winner is basically constantly dictated by when it comes out.
Yeah.
If it's too late, there's too much on the board, betrayal guy is
I remember the last time I played this game, we didn't trigger it until we literally had every tile out, and it was just you had to be in a specific room and like use one of your actions to do a ritual or something.
No, we played with Aaron and Matt. And you triggered it, and I betrayed.
Oh no,
I became the betrayer, and it was
true.
with the expansion, and I had like the mind-sucky straw power or something weird.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was no time before that I'm referring to.
And then I had to basically murder you all.
Yeah.
And then I murdered a small child at the end. The small child lasted the longest, which was interesting.
Yeah.
which was also kind of disturbing.
It was the previous time that I'd played that it was where we basically were already in the rooms that we needed to be in, and we just did the ritual, and it was really easy.
With Mike, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very sad. He's like, "Oh, you won already?" I was just about to set up, and we're like, "Yeah, we won already."
We won already.
The other thing that I kind of really don't like about this game is I feel like the production value wasn't very good. Like, the cardboard's fine, but like the minis with their paint jobs, they're a little questionable to me.
Little wonky. Yeah. There are some good aspects to it as well, though. I like the whole theme behind it.
Because you like the Halloween happy games.
Yeah, well, the Eldritch kind of theme. It does a decent job with that, like, Eldritch kind of theme.
It's, like, slightly less Eldritch than... I feel like it's more
like
Haunted Mansion than...
all that kind of
okay,
stuff.
fine. If that counts as Eldritch. Because, like, I feel like Eldritch, you had to have, like, the Cthulhu in there somewhere.
But, yeah. I think it's towards the bottom of the top 10, but it did make it into the top 10, so it gets its place.
Towards the bottom? It is the bottom.
It is the bottom.
It is the bottom.
That is true.
Let's be accurate.
Well, let's move on to number 9. And our number 9, we have Mice and Mystics.
Ooh. Okay.
Mice and Mystics is a fun game where you're playing through like a story, and you get to go up against enemies that are like little... Was it rats and cats? There was like...
There's a cat in one, and I think there are a few rats. I think there were a few spiders as well. And then
you're fighting
a
like
raven or something that can come swoop down when you're in the middle.
Mini warriors fighting against the forces of the small world and kind of moving around. That's cool.
I think the ultimate story was like the wizard shrunk you all down to escape like the king that was overthrown or something.
Yeah,
it's been a long time
like
since
that.
we played this. And then you're trying to like fight your way through the little dungeons, which is, rat infested obviously because dungeon. And I think you're trying to overtake the throne again.
Yeah,
but you can't for some reason because magic. I cut you off. That's okay.
It was pretty balanced, I think, mechanically. It was fun thematically. You had like the cheese wedges and stuff. That was a fun theme. I like the artwork.
Thundersqueak.
Yeah, Thundersqueak. I like the artwork in the book and on the
Yeah,
board
it
and
was
with
very
like all of
nice.
that kind of stuff. I definitely think it's worthy of being on the list.
The components are definitely something really nice. I think the issue I have with this is that you can't take all of the mice. I think you have to exclude one or two of the mice each run. And if you don't balance your team very well, it's more problematic. Because like the first few times we played, I actually don't think we've ever played with the cleric. There's a piece that's a cleric. I don't think we've ever played with it. And I know more so in the second stage, I don't know if it's chapter 2 or just the second area with the crow or the raven when they're in like the garden or something, I want to say. We had a lot of trouble with the health.
Yeah.
Like a lot of trouble with the health.
Yeah, you kind of have to take the cleric, and we've kind of struggled in our playthroughs not taking the cleric.
We just want to murder things with the magic and the swords and the thunder squeaks.
But yeah, it's a cool game, and I definitely think
nice.
it's worthy of number 9.
We should take it out sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Give it a play. So number 8 on our list is a game called Okie Dokie, which is a card game that we play a lot more than basically any other thing in our arsenal because it's just very easy. It's co-op, which is nice. So I don't always lose this one. It's very nice.
That's the one we bust out when it's one of the 3 that we'll bust out when we're trying to do just like a quick card game night.
Or just a quick game in general.
Yeah.
Really. But I think the premise is like you're an orchestra leader, conductor, I guess would be the term for that. Conductor, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to get all the animals to make pretty music together.
Yeah, and
they have cards, and they're different difficulties depending on if you play with the wild cards.
And we've been pretty good at it in the past. We've beaten it several times without
we have the mind meld.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and I think it's a simple game to explain to play with other people.
It's just hard to get used to not being able to say everything you want to say.
Yeah, which is I think all of those like silent communication kind of games where you're not allowed to say certain things are always kind of hard for people to adjust to.
It's like Taboo, where you just can't say the word.
Yeah.
You want to. Like every part of you wants to, and you're like, no, I mustn't. It's just sad. Anyway.
Well, moving from a very simple card game to one of my gateway board games that I ever got to add to my collection.
Really?
And that is number 7. We have Castle Panic.
The Panic of the Castle?
Yes, the Panic of the Castle.
Yes.
This game was one I added to my collection early on when I first started collecting board games.
Me
and
too.
Yes. And I have 2 expansions to it.
Yeah, you have both expansions.
And the Wizard Tower. It has one of my favorite expansions that I've ever gotten, which was the Wizard Tower, which is fun.
Yeah, but you always wreck our Wizard Tower. Yeah. So does Jesse. Jesse was very consistent in wrecking the Wizard Tower.
Yeah, but it added like spells and stuff to it. But it's got a decent amount of strategy, a decent amount of planning when you can communicate with the people around the table to kind of trade cards when you need to, so you have the right cards when it comes around to you and things like that. And I definitely think that it's fun thematically to a degree where you have like the card with like the barbarian guy who's like flying through the air with the axe and like all the spell cards when you have those and all like the bosses and stuff. Those are cool. I think it works well. And it's one of those games that can be really easy sometimes, but then all of a sudden take like a really quick bad turn.
Dramatic turn.
Yeah, if you like get the boulder in the wrong spot or something like that, or the bosses come out at the wrong times.
Yeah. I think for me, like, this was definitely one of the first games I got and one of the first games you introduced me to because it is a gateway game. It's a very simple game. It's very easy to teach. And you never really have problems, explaining this to people. Like, it's not complex at all. But I think that's also the downside. I think, like, when you get to a certain point in your gaming career, it's just not interesting anymore. Like, there's so many other things that are just a lot more engaging. Like, there's a lot more in touch with the theme. Not that this is horrible. It's not one of those ones that seems like completely slapped on, but it's like almost slapped on, I feel.
Yeah, it definitely is one of the lower complexity games that's out there, and especially one of the lower complexity cooperative board games out there.
Yeah.
Like, there's cooperative card games that are less complicated than this, obviously, but there's a lot of board games that have a lot more complexity to them and a lot more potential to lose and more tactics.
Yeah, except when we're playing with the Overlord. But also, you're not going to comment on the theme. You're just going to completely, like, skip from one topic to the next, man. That's
Yeah, well, I mean, the theme is kind of like that cartoony fantasy kind of theme that we've seen in other things.
But we're not going to talk about how I felt like it was slapped on. It's like you didn't even respond to what I was saying.
What do you want from me?
I don't acknowledge what I said.
I don't have a disagreement with you. Like, it didn't. I don't feel like it was necessarily tacked on. You couldn't
I didn't say completely tacked on, but almost there.
I don't think it was really even almost there. So it's here. I'm addressing your point.
Good,
And I'm
thank you.
disagreeing with you.
I don't
think that it was tacked on. I don't think that it was even partially tacked on because you couldn't just put that in. You couldn't put another theme on top of it and make it make sense. Like
defending a thing.
I mean, you could do a tower defense, but it's still going to be tower defense. Like, I mean, yeah, you could do...
That's a bad mobile game.
I guess you could do tower defense in space or tower defense in post-apocalyptic world and zombie defense or something.
I guess you could have, boiled it down and be like, defend your, town or something. And it's just, a bunch of people with spears.
You're jumping through loops.
But anyway, it's jumping through loops.
You're jumping through loops to justify your tacked-on comment about Castle Panic.
No!
Listen, you called more attention to it. I was letting it slide, but...
it's fine. The people like when we disagree on things, don't you people?
That's true.
Lovely listeners. You love when we disagree because we get bickering. And bickering is the best for the entertainment.
Speaking of entertainment, what is number 6?
That would be Dead of Winter,
oh.
which is not one of my favorite games and did not make it to the top of this list. It's basically at the middle of this list.
Yeah.
Because I am not a fan of zombie games, which we have discussed before. Just, they're not my thing. I think another issue with this particular zombie game is it's kind of disjointed in the sense that there's no real board. You have the section where you have, the survivors and I think, the zombie spawn area, but then it's hey, here's this pile of cards over here with this, little thing that says school on it. You know what I mean? It's, disconnected.
Yeah,
as opposed to one
that.
Joint, hey, here's the school on the board, and over here are the zombies, and over here's this other thing.
Yeah.
I think I kind of always forget to read the crossroads thing too. I feel like this is one of those ones where there's so many disjointed things going on. It's hard to play correctly, even though I know how to play this game. And also some scenarios I find better than others. I don't like betrayers because that's rude. And I don't know what it is with this game, but I am always the cook. Just glaring at everybody why can't you be helpful and gather some food in this zombie apocalypse lamp? She don't have time for this. She just want to cook shit. But it's literally every single game I played the cook. I don't know how that happens. There's so many other pieces I could get, but cook. I'm the cook. Kiss the cook.
I mean, the cook is necessary because food is a problem in a lot of the games. I feel like food is the thing that tends to be the thing that loses games for us most of the time.
I'm not saying it's a bad piece. I don't mind playing the cook. I just think it's weird that I have literally always played the cook.
Well,
you get Sparky a lot.
I do. I like the dog. The dog is my favorite because it doesn't have to roll for zombie infections and things like that. I can't spread the zombie infection. Plus, it's a dog. It's like a super dog.
Yeah.
Sparky the super dog.
It's got a cape.
It does have a cape.
Fancy dog.
Well, now let's go on to our number... What is it? 5? What are we on? 5?
We're on number 5. We just did Dead of Winter. That's number 6. So after that is number 5 because we're counting down.
I am going to do the number 5, and that is 5-Minute Dungeon.
Look what we did there.
Yeah. 5-minute dungeon.
Yeah.
That's a fun game because it's chaotic. It's quick. It's one of those games where you can get your whole family involved.
Oh, yeah.
That's a multi-generational game. That's the one we play with Lakota, and we'll play it with my mom, and everybody can play it. It's definitely a game that's better to play with 4 people.
Oh, yeah. It was miserable. We played it a few times, just the 2 of us, and it was awful. I don't think we even got past 4 months.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't balance well for 2 people. It it really doesn't because it doesn't scale. There's no real change to the gameplay enough to. I think you might have more cards.
You have more cards,
but that doesn't justify the fact that you're losing 2 people's worth of hands that can be played.
Other things.
Yeah, that have other
more
things
predominantly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't counterbalance it at all. So you kind of have to play it with 4 people. I think that's
at
the
least
ideal.
3.
Yeah. And the theme is fun. The cards are fun. The artwork's nice.
It's a little weird, but I'll take it.
But it's fun for what it's trying to be.
Yeah.
And there's enough strategy to it where you have to save some cards and play your abilities at the right times.
But also rush and be crazy.
Yeah. So you kind of get a nice balance to it. And I think that's kind of cool. I like those kind of games.
The only thing I don't like, though, is that the way you're supposed to play, and we don't always do this because house rules is if you lose a boss, you're supposed to start over from the beginning of the game,
Yeah.
which I find very obnoxious because it's like sometimes, oh, we all drew just like the scroll thingamabobs. Great. We need not that. So I guess we lose. Huzzah. And it'll be like in the first 5 seconds of a round. And it's like, really?
Yeah, that is a little bit punishing on the game where you have to start all the way from the beginning.
Yeah.
But I think if you house rule it and kind of play where you're tackling each boss one at a time,
It's more fun.
it's more fun and less high pressure, because I almost feel like that's like the hardcore Nuzlocke version. It's like you go back to the beginning when you lose.
Well, it's also like the 5 minutes. Like you don't feel it as much in the beginning, but like by round 2 you start to, in round 3 like you're really like, oh my god, this 5 minutes is like insanity, because you're all hollering at each other and throwing cards all over the place and then trying to clear them out, and then you're like, oh my god, wait, did we do this one? I thought we did this one. We did that one. Just move back.
It's a draining 5 minutes with the energy.
It's like an anxiety rush. It's just insanity on a table, but like in a good way, but also not, kind of, because it's kind of stressful, but amusing. Yeah. Let's start some family fights with some card games, guys.
What is number 4?
Number 4 is Mountains of Madness. Ooh. An
Eldritch
yellow
games.
game.
Speaking of Eldritch.
So this one's fun, I just think, because the madness. The madness makes this game. Like, if madness was not an element of this game, it would not be fun. And I think some are much better than others. I mean, there's the one where you have to use a finger mustache to communicate with each other that we all very much like. But there's some, like, really weird ones where, like, you had to, like, look at each other in the eye or you couldn't communicate, which was really rough because no one in your family likes to, like, look at people.
There was one where you had to wait till somebody said your name.
The name of the investigator on the card, which no one knows.
Yeah.
I had that one once, and I was like, oh my god, why?
Yeah, and there's one we had to walk away from the table.
Yeah,
and like,
one where you had to sit on the floor.
Yeah, that was the one my mom drew and was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not sitting on the floor.
Well, I think it's funny too, like this game, like sometimes you want to see what the next madness is, so you're like, give me the madness.
Yeah, sometimes you're kind of anxious to go on to the next one, especially if you get one of the early ones that's more annoying and boring.
Yeah.
And you're just like, don't want to do that, or the ones that require you to, like, you can't say numbers and you have to do, like, you have to add them together or whatever to make the total.
Yeah. This is another game where you need to mind meld a little bit. You need to know who's messing with your head.
Yeah, but it does come down to a lot of just planning out when you're going to go up to the next stages. You can't be too anxious on it. You have to kind of move around on the bottom levels before you keep going up.
But you also can't sit there so long that you go through all the cards you need to actually, like, get the rewards at the higher levels.
Yeah. But so there's enough strategy to it where I definitely think it's worthy of the bottom 5 or the top 5, I guess.
It's worthy of the top 5.
Yeah.
This is not debatable. I declare it worthy, therefore it is.
Well, speaking of the top 5, our number 3 is Magic Maze.
One of my favorites.
Yes, Magic Maze. Magic Maze is very fun. That's the king of silent communication.
Oh god. I mean, they have the timeouts where you could actually communicate, which I think kind of saves it, because otherwise you're just like glaring at each other and throwing the like do something token in each other's faces. But
yeah, I mean, then you kind of realize how dense some people are when you're playing with them, and it's like, oh, why are you not figuring this out? Come on.
Move the piece to the west.
And you have to like bang with the pawn thing, and just like bang here, bang there.
Yeah, we get a little aggressive with that pawn. The poor pawn must be like, why is this happening to me? I just wanted a quiet day at work. And it's stressing me out.
You do that little like, you're banging on the table, getting him to move it, and they moving it a little at a time, and you're like, keep going, and you just keep banging it and banging it and banging it until they get what they want.
Oh dear.
It's a fun game. There's scenarios that you can play. There's like different combinations of the maps that come out kind of randomly.
The pieces are simple. I wish they were shaped a little better. I guess it couldn't really work that way, but like, just something that's not the, hey, I'm a piece from Sorry kind of look. I like the premise though. I think the premise, like that you're robbing a mall because you're, broke adventurers is... Yeah. That amuses me. I do like that.
It reminds me of many a nights when you're broke in a D&D campaign, you're stuck in a town, you're like, I need some money so I can buy this potion or this magic item. Let's rob somebody.
But I like how the components are made. I think the premise is good. It's easy to explain. I just don't like how... This is another game kind of like Carcassonne, not as extreme, where you really need a big table depending on how things shape out. Otherwise, it's an absolute mess. And that's not ideal when you're playing a game. You want everything to be neat and organized and like have a logical shape and progression to it.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case with this. You need a big table. It's not. Table friendly. Relatively budget friendly. I think it averages like $35, $40, which isn't bad at all.
Well, what is number 2?
Shadows over Camelot.
That's a good game.
I like this one because Arthur, love Arthur. Good old King Arthur. And I like how each knight has, a separate ability. I think some of them are definitely better than others. In that sense, I don't think they're the most balanced. I think that the trader mechanic is... I'm not a fan of traders. Let's start there. But I think this game is significantly easier to win as a trader just because there's so many ways that you can lose between like, the siege engines and just not getting enough of the swords.
The easier of a game it is
to,
the easier of a game it is to lose, then the easier it's going to be for the trader to win. And there is a lot of those scenarios where it's like you can continue playing through the game and do a lot of things that will help you win as the trader, that'll help you win in the long run, but still seem like you're playing normal. It's not like you out yourself. Like in Dead of Winter, I feel like with the trader mechanic in that, it's easy to out yourself because you have to kind of screw up the missions and stuff. Or like in a resistance or something like that, you have to kind of out yourself. In this, you could just play like normal, and the game's going to progress towards being hard anyway. The siege engines are just so easy to...
you could take it last minute. You could be like, I'll take a siege engine and just like screw them over. Like everyone's like, oh, we're going to win. We have this many swords. And then you just... You
just do the siege engine. Yeah, it's really easy. And I think that the 2 times, I think I've been a trader twice.
Yeah, you're always a trader.
And I've won by the siege engines both times.
It's a joke to win as the trader in this game. Yeah. It's so easy. I don't think the game is very balanced. I think the biggest issue I have with this game is that it's just so easy to lose. It's so much easier to lose than to win. It's not like Eldritch Horror bad. We still haven't won that one, but we've won this one a few times, so there's that. The components are nice. I do like the components.
The good thing about the game, though, is even if you play it without the trader mechanic, I don't think you're getting a bad experience.
No, I do enjoy it. I think they could have done more to make it a little bit easier to win. I'm not saying like a ton easier. Like I think like you want a challenge, but you don't want it to be like we're doing great, and then all of a sudden you just lose.
Yeah,
that's what's depressing about this game. Like you could do great and then at the last second lose, or within a few turns just lose, and it's like, ugh, why?
The only limiter that they have is that you can't reveal yourself as a trader until after 6 swords, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. So they tell you that there's only a certain amount of time that you have to play it like normal up until that point.
But even if you waited until 9 swords, you could still take the game. Yeah. I think like even if they have more swords, like if you off them with the siege engines, they lose anyway. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing the game needs to work on. But in general, it's our number 2 game, so I guess we shouldn't really crap talk it too much, should we?
Well, I mean, we're not really crap talking it. We're just saying it needs a little balancing work.
Yeah. It does. I think there's a lot of good with it. There's a lot of fun that you can have with it, and it's one of those games where it's like when you're playing the cooperative part of it, like when you end up in one of those games where it's obvious that nobody's a trader, after a certain point, you kind of get the sense that nobody's a trader. Or if you chose to not play with a trader, which you can just not play with a trader, then you feel like you're in it together with everybody, and that's one of those things. That's the essence of a cooperative game.
Yeah, and then blood for the blood god. Everybody's got to sacrifice a little bit, man.
So that was number 2 was you. So I did get number 1.
I know, I knew that from the beginning. I know you chose the odd numbers, so you could be like, I get to say number 1 because I am number 1 here. Yes, on the channel. It's the Joker channel because King's Entertainment, and that is me. And that's I will introduce number 1. It is this game, which I will not say because I'm letting you have it. Go ahead.
I appreciate you adding 30 seconds of runtime to the video with that little tirade. But our number 1 is Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu.
You couldn't even say it good. It's number 1. You're supposed to give it like...
Listen, you threw me off with your little like tirade.
Wow. Excuses, sir.
Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu is our number 1 cooperative game.
Our favorite pandemic.
Yes, it's our favorite pandemic. And it's a game that we actually played well after we played the original Pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
And it was kind of a throwaway, like, oh, hey, this is a Cthulhu version of Pandemic. We have a decent experience with Pandemic. let's try this Cthulhu version.
It's actually funny. Pandemic, I think, was the third game you've ever introduced me to.
Yeah.
And I never really liked Pandemic. I thought it was boring, to put it lightly. The cubes. All the cubes.
The cubes.
But, like, for some reason, I do like this version a lot. I think it's because it adds the element in which you are fighting, and I just, like, need that combat element to be a happy person.
Yeah,
It's farming or it's fighting. Pick one.
The Eldritch Gods are a decent element to it, where they have different abilities that affect the game when they're revealed. Yeah. The artifacts are better than the what would they be the equivalent of, the emergency cards, whatever they are in Pandemic, like the airlift and stuff like that. The action card, I don't remember what they're called, but
those things,
those cards, they're better than that. They have more interesting effects. Yeah. Some of them last for a certain amount of time. Like they're definitely a lot more unique. The sanity mechanic is interesting because you have to manage that along with everything else that you're doing.
Like the cultist.
Yeah.
Always a cultist.
Yes. And the fact that, like you're saying, you're actually attacking things, which is kind of interesting. And that they can move. So, like, you have the Shoggoth? The Shoggoth can actually move towards the gates when you draw the cards that tell them to move.
Mess things up for you.
Yeah. So there's definitely... after the first handful of times that we played, I kind of got the sense that the game was relatively easy, but then we had that the last few times when we lost, and it was like that. Okay, I can see how the game can spiral out of control.
The gods. It's that added element of having to deal with the gods in addition to the, like, I don't want to say infection because obviously it's not an infection here, but the spread of the cultists.
Yeah.
And the evils, because you don't have that mechanic here. Like, there isn't the, like, is it an outbreak? That's what it is in Pandemic. We don't have that in this game.
Yeah, the fact that there's not a lot of cultists either. Yeah. Like we find ourselves getting down to the bottom of the cultist supply pretty quickly.
Pretty consistently.
Yeah, and we have to actually, like, talk to each other and strategize how can we kill enough of these to make sure that we last through the next turn.
Yeah.
And that it makes it so you kind of have to have the hunter. If you don't have the hunter, it's a very hard, if not impossible, to win game, honestly.
I could see that.
Like I mean, I'm sure there's ways to play around it, but when we haven't had the hunter in the game, we haven't won. And the hunters just is the only way you can mitigate the fact that you're running out of cultists really quickly. And
fight the Shoggoths effectively.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I think there's some pieces that are definitely better. Like the last time I played the reporter, and we actually realized that her insane was better than her not insane.
Yeah.
Because she had, like, an effect where she could draw a card out of the pile.
Yeah, she could actually draw one of the used action or one of the used town cards, which makes it a lot less annoying to have to discard cards if you can pull them out of the thing. Yeah, but I mean, you lose the extra actions, so you're only doing 3 actions, but that ability is significantly better than the one that allows her to travel bus stations or whatever. Yeah, something with state. I didn't even use the ability the entire freaking game. I just let me be insane so I could be remotely useful. Yay! I was the occultist, and I was able to move the cultists towards me, so I could, like, bring them towards me using my actions. You're and not have to move around. Yeah. So that was fun. You were Jediing. Yeah, and I think their abilities are more unique and more fun to play with than the ones in Pandemic. Yeah, I think there is some crossover. They're basically the equivalent of the researcher the first time we played this game. And there's some crossover you see there, but I do think the biggest problem with this game, which we've already touched on, is that the roles are not balanced. The components are great, the art's great, the theme is great, the way that they have everything going is nice. Like, I like the added effects of the gods, even though they could be a pain in the butt at certain times, because there were a few times where we were about to win and it's like, nope, let me just troll you with this ability. Have fun. Yeah. But it's just, like, some of them are so useless. Like, they're not balanced, but I also think they all have their purpose. I think that's kind of where... I mean, the reporter was obviously to, like, travel around faster, but it's like, I don't really need that right now. I mean, sometimes you would. But, if you need to get from one side of the map to the other side, but usually if you're playing with a group, which usually we have everyone in different sections of the board to manage different things. So it's like that kind of ability isn't really useful in a game with basically more than 2 people. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's enough use in most of them for you to kind of do something with them. And there was definitely like 3 or 4 of them that it's like, oh, I'd be interested in playing that character. I can't even remember anyone other than, like, the one I just played and the occultist, which you just mentioned, and then the hunter. You have the guy that's basically the researcher. Yeah, and you have the one that has 5 actions.
We don't even remember what one that is, but
You
there's
have the
that
one. You have the magician, which starts with artifacts.
Oh, okay.
That one's fun. Lakota played that one time.
It was good for him. He had fancy things. He had things up his sleeves, rolled them up, and then he was like, parrots! Because you have parrots in this game now, you know. So anywho, that is our favorite. Those were our top 10 favorite cooperative games, the ones we deem the best of the cooperative tabletop game stuff. Edition. I was going to say edition. I'm like, that's not quite right. Let us know down below what you thought of this list. Have you played any of these games? Do you think we weren't on point tonight? Let us know. We'd like to know these things. You know, if you like what you saw here today, because, you know, we're awesome and entertaining, because we're, you know, King's Entertainment here, press that like button, yo. Second until it's blue. Subscribe, ring that bell so you know what's up, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, are you listening? Hey, this is Billy West. I knew you'd recognize my voice, but sometimes you can't, because you're watching King's Entertainment Reviews. Now, I would love it, being the professor, if you'd comment, like, and subscribe. You hear that? He knows what he's talking about, because he's a smart old bastard. Yeah. All right, now, get with it.